All right, hello, welcome to the Mon Thought Room. My name is Jethro, and this episode is part of a continued series on conversation. And I believe that the skill of conversation is one of those that when we take the time to improve, it will ultimately improve our, I'm using the word improve again, it will ultimately allow us to show up as we intend a bit more often. All right, so when we take the time to improve how we show up in conversation, it will ultimately, big picture, improve how we show up overall. Right, the more often we show up as intended, the more we become of what we actually expect of ourselves. We meet our potential, and not only we meet our potential, but we then go beyond our potential, right? So, a conversation this episode, the focus is going to be on conversation as a vehicle for thoughts, ideas, or feelings, right? So, just going back to the definition that we're using for conversation, conversation is an exchange. Oh, whoa, slow down. Conversation is an interactive, informal exchange of thoughts, ideas, or feelings between two or more people. All right, once again, a conversation is interactive, informal exchange of thoughts, ideas, or feelings between two or more people. And today's episode, we're covering on conversation, right, as a vehicle for thoughts, ideas, or feelings, right? So, a vehicle, right? So, what do we mean by a word vehicle? Again, with almost every word, I always say this, and this is something if this is the only thing you get from the episode, please take it and run. Is if you ever need a framework, go to the definition of a word. Every definition is a framework, right? Every definition is a framework, and frameworks help us understand things that are a bit could be a bit more abstract. They kind of help us bring them into focus in a way that we can act on them a bit quicker, right? Frameworks don't solve all equations. What they do is they help us kind of simplify things in a way where it becomes compact and gives us a roadmap for us to attack, right? That's the benefit of frameworks. I'm gonna harp on frameworks a little bit more. Frameworks aren't just meant to copy and reproduce, right? So just remember that. You get the framework, it helps you kind of get kind of blinders on, it gives you a target you can attack, and then at some point you need to pick your head up and think about the big picture as well, right? And then even tweak some of the framework, right? So again, definitions, frameworks, I don't want to say synonymous, but synonymous, right? Um, so a vehicle, right, is an instrument, right? Yeah, I don't have the definition for, but a vehicle is an instrument to kind of help you get from one to one, right? A to B, right? Um, and a vehicle, in that sense, right, is something that somebody is using, right? So a person might be using a conversation to connect with you about a certain thing. Their end goal, whether they know it, whether it's top of mind, whether it's subliminal, whether it's subconscious, whatever, their job or their goal is to get something to you, to communicate something to you, to exchange something with you, right? And the conversation is the mode that they're doing it, and that's normal. That's not weird. All right. I think my tone might have made it sound weird. No, it's normal, right? We have stuff we want to get off to people, and conversation is the mode that we do that. So, what does that mean? That means we need to respect what is happening, particularly when people are sharing things of any note with us. If you're having a conversation and it's not about miscellaneous random stuff, but it's about anything of note relative to who is sharing it and for what reason they're sharing it, now you need to just respect that the person is using this vehicle, the conversation, to get information to you. You know what does that do? How does that change how you approach conversations? That lets you know that anytime somebody starts and engages in conversation with you, they are making themselves vulnerable, right? They're making themselves vulnerable. And in many cases, this is why people do not instigate conversation, continuing conversation, pick up conversation, continue with back and forth in conversation, right? Is because there's an element of vulnerability and concern about maybe motive, about image, how you're going to come off, how you're going to seem, these types of things, right? These are all latent in that I'm using this conversation to connect with this person or connect this piece of information to this person or share this with that person. And there's an element of vulnerability that's there that needs to be respected, right? And it's varying depending on your relationship with the person. That level of vulnerability is at varying levels, right? So the conversation again is a vehicle that that person's using for connection. That connection can be used for sharing information, for just connecting, or what have you. Now, thoughts, conversation vehicle used for thoughts, right? I want to let you know how I think about things. I want to let you know how I think about certain things. I want to let you know why I think certain things, right? I want you to know what's on my mind, right? And those are things that a lot of us want to do. We want to be able to connect to somebody in a way where we can share how we're thinking about things. Why? Because the average person, if you are living a life and you're at a place where you have opinions and you are starting to build opinions of your own and you're feeling a bit more courageous about expressing what you think, right? You do want to communicate with somebody about it. Why? Well, one of the things it does for you is it helps you um, make more concrete the thoughts that you have. Once, all right, so you have a thought in your head, right? If you don't write down the thought, if you don't talk to somebody about it, the thought is still boundless, right? What do I mean by boundless, right? It's abstract in that it doesn't have boundaries. Once you have to pick words to confine it so that a person can understand it, then you are giving your thoughts some sort of parameters. Anytime you have a thought that you haven't yet expressed, whether written it down or talked to somebody about it, it is still in a way formless. You're trying to give it form in your mind, but it's not until you say, all right, yo, bro, like I got this idea. Let me run this idea by you. I got this. I was thinking about something. Let me run it by you, right? Once you do that, you now have to then go and formulate that idea, that thing that was abstract, that thing that was boundless, that thing that had much greater room to take up more space than the words that you're going to use to kind of convey the image to somebody, right? So conversations, vehicles for people to share their thoughts. Thoughts aren't the same, aren't defined. Thoughts aren't defined in the way that, like, when we're at work, we're kind of responding to emails, making points. Thoughts are a bit more uneven or they're still being cooked, and that's one of the beauties of when you have people that you can kind of go back and forth with, and that's it's really important. I think this is one of those people don't get people sometimes people don't get awards for this, right? You don't get award for being a confidant at work, but everyone needs somebody on their job or in their workplace or in their team or in their space that's a sort of a confidant and that they can kind of work out unfinished thoughts and ideas with, right? Why? Because some of that verbal processing is helpful. Even if it's not verbal and it's written, some of that is helpful in helping that person kind of, you know, wrangle their thoughts so that they can kind of make a decision to move forward or make an innovation, right? Ideas. People have tremendous ideas, but you have to work through those ideas before you can really, if you want to develop a new service, if you want to develop a new offering, if you want to develop a new product, you need to work through those ideas, and working them through with people is one of the best ways to do that. I know AI is really talented and it can give you a lot of perspective because of a lot of the businesses and things that I've put content online, and they're able to scrape that and kind of give you some type of synthesis and work through the synthesis in a very designed way if you have particular agents and all the good stuff. But when you are communicating with a person, there's a rawness to their reaction, to their perception, to the connections that they can draw that aren't telegraphic. They might see something that is far out there. It might not even be spot on, but it could get you to then think about something and connect the dots, right? So, conversations, vehicles for thoughts, for ideas, right? Also, we kind of bled into that, but conversation vehicles for ideas, right? So, ideas are a step further along than a thought. A thought might be still kind of shapeless. Ideas are successions of thoughts, right? They are things that you are piecing together, and you believe they're going to ultimately solve something, right? They're gonna do something. An idea is about something that is going to do something. And again, going back to the why it's important to have, especially in your for people working with teams and groups and things like that, it's important to have somebody that's a true confidant person that you can actually go back and forth with some of your ideas, because sometimes you really need to go to that person, really work through the idea before you bring the idea forward. Otherwise, you could bring forward a sloppy idea and it could really hurt your confidence if reaction to it is poor. And I think for a lot of people that is something. I know for myself, because I'm sort of like a, loosely speaking, like an expansive thinker. Like, there's sometimes I brought ideas to people and it's just been shot down. And by the grace of God, we back up and got to it, and we get more ideas, and we go keep. It's not gonna stop, but it does hurt. It does hurt. It does hurt because when you have an idea and you're sitting with it and you're working through it and you're trying to find solutions and you're looking for creative ways to solve problems, when those things are shot down, it can be off-putting, and it could be something to make you think, okay, what's the purpose of me working through these things and trying to find a different way, right? And that's not the place that we want to put people in. And that's why conversations are important, because what a conversation is, again, is that exchange. And in that exchange, people want to see and they want to be able to also get value. And when you are actively thinking about all these different aspects of what a conversation truly is, your principled approach to how you communicate with folks will definitely change. All of it won't change, but you will definitely start seeing moments more clearly where you can make a tremendous impact just by making an adjustment in the conversation, because you know what phase of the conversation you're at, what is really needed, what's really intended. And for the folks that are a bit less vocal, it also shows you where sometimes you might be selling yourself short and you need to step up and defend yourself, or maybe you need to command more of an influence in that conversation, right? So that your points can get heard. Maybe you need to speak up so that you can get affirmed, right? Just not speaking will make it hard for you to get affirmed, right? You might have a great idea and you're just always afraid to share your ideas and perspectives, and they're for not feel like you are in the right about anything, confident enough to create something on your own. Well, how about you share that idea with somebody, allow them to react naturally, and then as you start to stack those conversations, stack those interactions, you're then working towards a better vision of whatever you have, that initial idea, right? Feelings. Conversation is a vehicle for thoughts, ideas, or feelings. Feelings is a that one's a tough one, because it's tied to the power dynamics in a way where we are emotional beings. So there are times where where we are emotionally can redefine what actually happened. Like we, through our emotions, just feel like, man, that was a disaster. I didn't like how that turned out. They were ridiculing me. I didn't like how they were condescending. I don't like how they shot down my idea. They don't like how they're all after me. Like you can spiral very quickly, right? If you've had a bad conversation and the feelings are very much so attached to it. And that's why it's important, for leaders who understand that there is a, I'm going to start with those people first, where you have a power dynamic. It's important to understand, okay, I have a bit of leverage on this person because of the power dynamics that are inherent. But because I don't want to abuse my influence, I'm going to open the floor for them a bit more so I can get more out of them so that they can be emboldened to share their perspectives, ideas, thoughts, what have you. Right. Now, as the person that you may be coming in feeling like the world is against you and you might not have anything that you feel is worthwhile enough to say to overcome that opposition, that's again where a feeling might be in the way, because you have to overcome that feeling, right? You have to overcome that feeling because sometimes people don't care. They're not really too worried about, what's going on in your head before you say something. They're worried about what comes out of your mouth, more so than what you were, theorizing about how they might react. They're worried what you end up saying could be the thing. All right. So the feelings aspect is tough because that's something sometimes you have to be able to let people know, right? And it's share, like, let's take this, right? A conversation about feelings is essentially just you letting somebody know how you feel about something. What does that do for you, right? If you are able to express to someone, hey, I did not like the way that you did XYZ, it made me feel like ZYX, right? If you can do that, what you're now doing is confronting a very, very tough aspect of conversational skills, which are fundamentally social skills that will then embolden you and give you the confidence you need to overcome other things. Why? Because whenever you get one victory, it's easier to get another. That is a principle. Winning begets winning. That's a principle. That's not my principle. I didn't make that up. I don't know who exactly is responsible for that exact kind of phrasing. Winning begets winning, but that is a principle that winners win. I don't know if people remember playing this, playing 21, like, you know, playing 21. It's a basketball game. It's like, kids playing. It's not really pickup, but it's in a pickup type of basketball game. You guys on the court, a random number of players. You guys are all playing. Um, and when you make your shot, there's some people that play winners and some people that don't play winners. um, when you play winners, you make your shot, you back on, and that's something that I think now I'm thinking about it now because that was a while ago. Now I'm thinking about that, and that's a good example of one of those um, things that sports teaches you, and you're not even aware that that you're learning it, right? But winning begets winning. So when you have that conversation about feelings, right? You share feelings and you are vulnerable. Again, a big part of this is vulnerability. And you are vulnerable in that sense. You are now emboldened to then move forward in confidence with the other things that you need to do. Right. So, in summary, a conversation, right, is a vehicle for thoughts, ideas, and feelings. Right. That vehicle is immediately something that we recognize as something that requires vulnerability. And we know that we are sharpened once we engage in conversation, right? And the main goal, again, is to start thinking about how we enter and engage in conversation intentionally so that we can improve in that space. And then ultimately we can show up in more spaces more consistently the way we intend. So the vision and the picture in your mind that you have about how you can show up, that's what I want for you to be able to show up like consistently. And when you do that, you then see that, hey, I can actually do much more. And from there, you expand your potential, you reach new levels in your capacity, and more 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 and more. I didn't have the right conclusion there, but as always, thank you guys. Appreciate you for your time. Take care. Bye bye.